Hello, I'm Alan Cumming, and welcome to my shelves. My shelves are sort of a museum of my life. I like to keep things from my travels that are, to me anyway, the very essence of the experiences I've had. Sort of portals, if you will, to a specific time and place. And the inspiration for stories and memories and musings. Here's my Alice in Wonderland watercolour set. It's a big set of watercolours, and the outside is in a sort of one of those old-fashioned tins with illustrations of Alice in Wonderland and the Mad Hatter and everyone at the tea party. And it's so nice. I've never used it. I just put it on a shelf. Here's a bottle of Moroccan rosewater facial spray for some reason. No idea. Here is a pack of Club Cumming playing cards. Yes, I have merch up the wazoo. And today I'm talking to Monica Lewinsky.
Like, I heard from friends from around the world saying to me, oh, I wish I could see this movie with you. I thought of you, blah, blah, blah. And of course it was, he's just not that into you. Was the movie. And
Welcome, bienvenue, welcome. Monica probably needs no introduction. She came to the world's attention in 1998 after she'd had an affair with her boss. Now, many of us have done that, but none of us have had the experience that Monica had. She became probably the first person on the planet to be the victim of internet shaming. And after a few years of renown, she went into hiding, basically. She sort of disappeared from the world for about a decade before bouncing back with an incredible TED Talk, and also then becoming a writer, a producer, and using her time so wisely and so passionately to campaign and lobby against cyberbullying. Hi, Miss Monikers.
hi, Alan. Hi, my love.
How are you doing?
I'm really good today, actually. I feel really good. How about you?
Pretty good. Yes, it's a nice spring day and always lovely to talk to you. And I have, can you hear this?
I can.
It's do you know what it is?
I think so. Is it also this? Can you hear that? No.
No.
Is it your bracelet?
Oh, no, it's not my bracelet.
Oh.
We have to talk about
okay.
that.
All right, because I put mine on. I had
did?
3 and I put them on. Yeah, I was trying to shake them like your keys. Remember the keys?
Oh,
shake
ring
the
them
keys
bells.
Ring the bells. Exactly. Same thing.
No,
shake the keys, ring the bells. Duh.
Liza. No, we'll talk about the bracelet in a minute. That's good. But no, this is an award. It's an award, Monica. It's a glass sort of, it's like a glass square that's curved, if you can imagine such a thing. Ladies and gentlemen, those who don't define as others. And the Creative Coalition TV Guide and TV Insider gave it to me. It's a television advocacy award for my work on behalf of charitable and LGBT social causes at a ceremony in Los Angeles in 2015. And the reason that I am talking about it is because it's on my shelves, and the person who presented me with this award is none other than Miss Monica Lewinsky. Do you remember that night?
I do, of course. I was both equal parts so excited for you and honored to be asked to present it to you, and nervous. So because it was sort of in my
early days of your coming back into the world.
Coming back out. Exactly. Yeah. Human being to the public versus just my small group.
I remember it was so hot in that. It was in sort of a tent at the what's that hotel called?
God, I forgot about that. I thought my spray tan was going to melt off, like start dripping down my legs. Yeah.
Oh, I was sweating like a pig. And it was that hotel. I can't remember the name of the hotel, but you said, I remember you said, when you went up to give me the thing, you said, I know you're all thinking, what the hell is Monica Lewinsky doing here? And it was so interesting because now it's just so funny to think in such a short time how everything has changed and how that seems like such a long time ago. And you seem like in the way that a situation like that, you would handle that now compared to then is like worlds apart.
Oh, thanks. Well, I'd still be nervous just because I don't, even though I've stepped out onto that red circle and given a TED talk, I do still get really nervous. I think it's reflective of just maybe kind of a sense of not, aside from high school drama, not ever having been someone who ever thought of themselves being a public person, so does that make sense?
Wow. Yes.
But I still just get nervous. And also because it's one of those things where it's like, you think something sounds really clever in your head and then you say it out loud and nobody laughs. You're like, okay. But I'm also very good at laughing at my own jokes. So I think I'm very funny. So I entertain myself all the time.
That's a great skill to have.
Yes, especially during a pandemic. So,
but I also think it's good to be nervous. I think I always think being nervous sort of means that you care. Do you know what I mean?
Do you still get nervous?
Oh yes, yeah. Like I get nervous, like especially first nights and things. I think nerves are related to something that you don't feel confident and sort of prepared for. It's the unknown. It's about not feeling comfortable. So when it's a new thing, a first night or standing up in a room and with people you don't know, I get nervous and I have a thing where I get so angry with myself on first nights because I think it gets to the point where you nearly, well I do, and I nearly lose control of my body. Like I feel I'm going to pee or I'm going to be sick or I'm sort of shaking. And I just think, why are you doing this? You don't need to be doing this. You could be on some film set somewhere having a nice time and going for dinner now. And now look at you. Why did you knew this last time? Why are you doing it again, Alan? And I get furious with myself.
I totally understand that. It's so interesting. I just started reading, maybe you've read it, Michael Singer's book, The Untethered Soul.
Oh, no, but someone was talking about that the other day.
Yeah. And so it's just interesting because in the beginning, he talks about how, our inner critic that we think of as ourselves, right? And our inner voice, when you really think about it, it's always talking to you in third person. It's like, you're so stupid. You could be doing this. You could be there. You could be that. And therefore it means it's actually not you. I'm probably bastardizing his beautiful book, but, and so there is something interesting because that, the inner dialogue, I remember this is just what's coming up for me did you see quite a few years ago, there was, Anderson Cooper did this documentary about being 13 and they had gotten access to all of these 13-year-olds' phones for, I think it was like a year or something. It was really interesting. And the one thing that stuck with me in such a painful way was the statistic around selfies, that it was like on average, a 13-year-old was taking 150 pictures for one selfie that they would post.
Wow.
And I just, and my heart sank because I just thought about the negative self-talk for the 149 that they didn't put, right?
Oh my God, that's so awful.
Yeah. And so you just think about, what that means in, in an advanced sort of technological world like we have today compared to when you and I were 13 back in the Pleistocene era.
Middle Ages, yeah.
Exactly.
Remember that play I did, Elle, when I played the Pope, the Jean Genet play?
Yes. I was just, why was I did I tag you in something on Twitter with that? Because it came up.
Oh.
God, it also came up for me recently. I think I still have the postcard thing from it with your tushy.
With my tushy
with your cute little tushy.
Playing a big old Eastern European Pope. And what was funny about that was that, it's about a photographer going to take a picture of the Pope and how the Pope's not done at the back. That's why my bum was out, because he turns around and his bum's, because they don't bother to do him at the back because you never see him at the back. Yeah, and it's about this sort of existential thing that, do you actually exist if you're not being photographed? And I found it fascinating
Right.
because, like, even then, that was like 2002, someone said to me, oh, were you at that Oscars party or something? I said, and I didn't see a picture in InStyle magazine. I thought, gosh, because I wasn't
Yeah.
in the magazine, he thinks I didn't go.
Right.
And I think that about our
Yeah.
Instagrammed world, because, do our lives really exist? Not in the way that we present them, because they're filtered and staged. And I just think there's this thing about photography. We use it now. It's not about just capturing something. It's about a sort of this enhancement. And I think that goes back to your 149 rejects before you get the one that you're happy with. It's really sad.
No, it's true. Is it real or is it Memorex? I mean, it is. It's we're creating this duality of life, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I was just talking to someone yesterday about this, about just sometimes, to each his or her own or their own. Sometimes we'll see these things on social media, or my friend was saying she had this in a personal situation of someone having been upset and they had taken a video, or someone's upset and they take a picture of themselves. And to me, there's just an element of like, okay, have we grown into these creatures where our phones and our pictures are such an extension of ourselves and our identity that it doesn't differentiate? Or is there, that would never be for me if I were sobbing in grief or
I think I'll take a picture of myself
in a bad mood or whatever it was. Right, exactly. And so even though it may be a way of kind of connecting for other people, how, I think that's one of the things about social media that can be beautiful, is that how many times you sort of see reflected in yourself, back to the negative self-talk, like how many times something that you think, oh, you're the only fucking idiot who would do that. And then you're like, oh no, look, there were a million other fucking idiots who also did it.
Yes, that's very heartening.
So, there's just that sense of really being part of a collective.
Solidarity.
Yes. Solidarity and stupid shit.
I think it's interesting. I mean, I sort of think social media's got various sort of themes for me. I like the one where it's sort of like postcards. Remember when we used to say we'd go somewhere and we'd send a postcard in, like, prehistoric times. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like we send postcard. Yeah. I mean, some people use it like that. Like they go somewhere and here we are, but or here's my dinner. It gets a bit sort of nichey. But then there's also this other thing about presenting. And I'm really interested to talk to you about, like, with your work about anti-bullying and how great then, when you gave me this award, that was shortly after you came back into the public eye, and you came back very much with this sort of aim of changing the landscape about cyberbullying, and I'm curious about what you feel that what does social media do and what it would have done to your situation. Do you not feel in some way you might have had a voice to talk back had there been the social media available then that there is now?
Yeah, I think that it would have been a double-edged sword in some ways. So where it would have been helpful, I think, is in there would have been some sort of repository of information about me that, while it may have not been accurate because it would have been curated, it at least was curated by me. Right. It would have been, this is the self I believe, or the self I want people to think I am, or who I think I am, even if I'm not really, like Johari's window, that sort of difference between how you see yourself and others, blah, 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 whatever. But I think in that way that it's kind of, imagine, when things happen now, when an unknown person becomes known in a very fast way now, the first thing people do is go to look at their social media.
Right.
Who are they? What have they been saying? What do they like? What are those things? So in that way, it both would have, possibly fleshed me out a little bit more as a human being in terms of who I really was. But also, I think it might have added a bit of dimensionality, irrespective of what the things were that I liked, that I just would have been anchored for people as human a little bit more,
like a real person.
Of course, there are a million other ways, right? It would have been awful. I can't even imagine all the accounts that would have been opened, and it was bad enough seeing jokes and things on late night shows or posted on the internet in a single thing. It wasn't something that there weren't likes at the time, right? Or retweets. So that, we didn't have a commodification for how far your shame was being spread.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in a way, I mean, I don't know if commodification is the right word there, but
I think it's
kind
good.
of more a statistic in a way. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll stick with it.
Yeah, do it.
So yeah, but in my situation, what also might have been challenge. I mean, obviously it would have still been challenging for myriad reasons, but
right.
I think the other thing in terms of having a voice, because I was in this legal quagmire, I don't think I would have been able to say anything publicly.
You weren't allowed to. That's right, because you had a gag order.
Right. I wasn't allowed to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. First it was from my lawyer, and then once I got immunity, I wasn't allowed to say anything publicly.
Ah, right.
Had to give up my First Amendment right to get immunity.
Wow. So, how long though?
It was. Let's see. I got it in 1998, and it wasn't until I think it was when when Bill left office, and then they were kind of. The investigation was considered quote unquote closed. So that was 2001.
Oh, right. So
I had to get permission. Yeah. So if I was going to, at first it was if I was going to do anything. And then it was if I was going to do anything where I was talking about what had happened. But right. I think eventually it sort of eased.
Yes. It's so funny because I watched your TED Talk again last night. So it's still so moving and stunning. And I was saying to someone, that years ago, the first time we met, for instance, and we were in 2000, and we were at a party and we went for dinner, and we were in a booth. And I remember it was at the height of just the world just being crazy, and you're at the center of this crazy storm. And I remember people putting their hands over the banquette to touch you, to touch your hair and things like that whilst we were eating. And leaving the restaurant was just, insane, like being with Elvis, or I don't know, So,
exactly. In his bloated years. No.
Monica, that's silly.
I know.
Bada bing.
I'm sorry. It's interesting. I think I've but for a handful of those kinds of things, I think I just blocked them out. There was just you're saying that. I'm now vaguely remembering that. And, and that it has happened of people sort of tugging on my hair. Is it real?
Yeah.
I had forgotten about that.
Yeah, it was really intense. And
I mean, don't you do that in some ways?
Yes, I was going to say, I mean, yes, I sort of, when I have friends come over to stay in New York and they come out and about with me, they're like, wow, is this what your life's like every day? And I go, oh, yes, it is. I just, you just deal with it. Go, hello, how are you? Or, or people just coming up to you all the time. But that was on a different scale altogether.
Yes. And the thought behind it was different too.
Yes. It was just kind of morbid curiosity and sort of weird. I mean, there was nothing like it, but it made me feel very protective of you and very, just seeing someone, and that was just when we were just getting to know each other, seeing someone having to go through that and, just getting in and out of a car and several times, I remember once in LA we were out and it was just bonkers. And you said to me things like, oh, you go first because they'll try and get a picture up my skirt if I leave to get out of the car. Remember all that? Absolutely horrible. But what I think is interesting is that cut to, now when we go out to dinner, people come over or would reach over the banquette and say, Monica, your TED Talk was so moving. And and I think it's such an incredible sort of journey to have known you for so long and see this change has happened. And I'm so proud of you for everything you've done in that way.
Oh, thank you, my love. I am so grateful to you for our friendship. And I was going to say that when you were saying you felt protective of me, that I have always felt that from you. I've always, for the 20 plus years that we've been friends now, that you have always been both protective and supportive. And sometimes honest in a way that is hard to hear, but is important.
Right. Yeah.
That there's, it's one of the things I really admire about you is that you're very, you're compassionate, but you're direct. And,
yes.
And I've always loved that.
It's funny you should say that about me being, compassionate but direct, because I was looking up another thing you said that night, the night of the... you said, Alan will bravely suggest when to get out of your own way and when to steer clear of a new romantic interest. If only I'd met him a few years earlier.
I forgot. I told you
That's
I'm
really
funny,
good. No, I know you're funny. And it says, the article, it's on the wrap, and it says, Lewinsky cracks, landing big with the joke. See, you got a huge laugh. Bada bing.
I should have been a comedian.
Yeah, I should have.
It's funny because I was, I don't know why I was right. I was emailing with somebody a few months ago, and I was up in Davis. Like, remember there was sort of this small period in the fall where it was like a little bit safe. Oh, well, you've been on the East Coast in New York.
No, in California though. I know what you meant. Yeah.
So I went up north to see, I think you've met her, Catherine. She's my best friend from college.
Yes.
And so I went to see her and her family in Davis, and then one of my other best friends, Sandra, in Carmel. And Catherine, and I was emailing somebody. I was like, oh yeah, I was with Catherine. And I was talking about how when like I heard from friends from around the world saying to me, oh, I wish I could see this movie with you. I thought of you, blah, blah, blah. And of course it was, He's Just Not That Into You, was the movie. And
hilarious.
And I was saying about Catherine, that Catherine has she has a certain tone of voice, like a dog voice for me when it comes to me talking about my romantic mishaps of like, she'd be like, Monica. She just says, Monica, in this way that it's like, it just says everything.
You want to go to
that
basket.
A 20-year history, the 20-year history will encompass of like, oh, again, really? You didn't really say that, Like, I did. It's what I felt. I have emotional Tourette's, so.
I love emotional Tourette's. That's really good. So that award, it was during Emmys weekend. Mm-hmm. And then I think later that, and there's obviously lots of parties and things around the Emmys, another time when I didn't win. And I think later that night, my agents were having a party. And do you remember, we went together to the party, and it was in that Italian-y big restaurant. I can't remember the name of it, on Doheny or Robertson or something. And we went to this big party, and it was just tons of people. And there was we were looking for food. One of us was starving. I think it was me.
Probably me.
Was it? Yeah. Maybe both of us. And we went into the kitchen. So it's like, they was doing this thing where the food was all in the kitchen. You had to go into the kitchens and get it. Yeah. It was all sort of lying around, and they're making pizzas and things and all this stuff. And you just had to go. It was all sort of like, a sort of a immersive party. It was just so annoying. Whatever happened to people with trays of things? And we went into the kitchen. They were finished doing all the stuff. They'd finished it because we went there late. And I was like, oh, God. And it said, but there was these baguettes in a sort of basket. And I said, could I just have this baguette? They were like, well, I suppose so. So I took a baguette, and we went, and I remember that you went to the loo, and I said, I'll go to the bar. And I saw you when you came out the loo, and I held my baguette up like an umbrella, like a tour guide holding an umbrella. So you'd see me. And then I remember we were leaving the party, and I was pushing it. I had your hand, and I was sort of pushing people with my baguette to get them out the way to let us through.
I forgot about that.
We got outside, and your car was coming, and I was walking you to your car, and it was all, everyone was, their valets were arriving, and the police were there. It was a big crazy party, and everyone was nuts. And there was a policeman, and I could see it was your car, and you couldn't see us. So I walked out into the street and banged my baguette onto your car, so the man would. No, it was you. And the policeman on a loud hailer went, Sir, will you stop hitting that car with your bread? I nearly got arrested for hitting a car with a baguette.
See, there you were being protective of me again.
The other thing that that you thought was going to be the thing I'd taken off Alan Cumming's shelves, although I wouldn't be able to take it off Alan Cumming's shelf, I have to take off Alan Cumming's wrist, is the so I'll tell the listeners, it's quite a complicated story. So years ago, in a swag thing, I got these bracelets. Like it was like
I know. I'm going to interrupt you so that everybody listening knows that for a million years, that for any birthday or holiday, any gift you would get from Alan was a collection of swag. So now he would kindly, sweetly choose from the swag he had gotten what swag he wanted to regift you. But just so you know, this was not an isolated event of getting swag as a present. Carry on.
Oh no, I did it all the time, and I think also it's like recycling. I think it's very green. It's very, what's that word?
Yes, sustainable.
Sustainable. Yes, it's very
upcycling. You upcycle swag. Yes.
And people were sort of like, oh gosh. I said, well, you like the present, don't you? And you'd rather I lied. Oh my gosh, a deer's just outside the window. We've got a deer, and they're coming so close to the house now. They're obviously
that's a nice sign.
Like us. They're not scared of us. I like it. Yes, bringing ticks and disease, of course. But
I actually just put out a hummingbird feeder today. I don't think I got it.
Be careful, they attract bears.
Oh, not in LA on the 7th floor.
No,
but
so. I know, you'll be fine.
I think so.
This is your neighbor.
Okay, so back to your story. So you recycled swag to me.
Gave you a collection of bracelets. And then but I kept a couple, and it was when I first started going out with Grant Schaefer, my now husband, and there was 2 of these bracelets, and they were sort of very thin little bracelets, and they kind of, you could squish them and they tightened, those kind. And so we thought, we'll wear a bracelet each. It'll be like our sort of our boyfriend bracelet. It's our first sort of, mild commitment sort of thing. So blah, blah. Then a few years go by, we decide to get married, and we decide and not to get rings. And what we'll do we actually forgot, and we're getting near to our wedding. We thought, oh my God, we don't have rings. And so we thought, what we'll do is we'll just swap our bracelets. We'll just take the bracelet off that one of us is wearing, and when it's the bit when you have to exchange rings, we'll just swap our bracelets. Of course, I don't know if you know this part, Monica, but when I was trying to put his bracelet on, if you've got to kind of pucker your hands to get the thing on, and I said in the middle of the ceremony with the Mandy, I said, oh, it's kind of like fisting. And I said that at my own wedding in the painted hall of the old Mary Darling. Yes.
What did you say, dear?
I hope she didn't hear that. And I couldn't believe I'd said it. I was so nervous. Anyway, so we swapped our, and I remember thinking, gosh, someone, I couldn't remember who it was I'd given those other bracelets to. I obviously knew it was a friend who was female, but I didn't, maybe it would have been a male as well. Anyway, I didn't know. And then I remember we found out it was you. And then what happened was, I think it was like this. I think this is the order. I lost my bracelet when I was traveling somewhere. I had to take it off and on for being in a film. And then somehow or other in packing and everything, it fell off, and I couldn't find it, and I was bereft. And then I remembered that someone would have other copies of that bracelet. Lobbing over to you, Monica.
Yeah, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, I thought I sent one to Grant.
It was Grant Schaefer.
It was Grant Schaefer who remembered, and Grant reached out because didn't he surprise you with it?
Exactly, you're absolutely right. So I was bereft, couldn't believe it,
right?
And then he worked out that it was you,
exactly,
and you sent it to him, and one day he just put it on my wrist again. I was like, "What? It's magic!"
Exactly. Now we're not only a throuple, but we're also, even though we've never had sex, but we're not only a throuple, but also I'm like the guardian of the wedding bracelets. And I think I started out with 5, and I only have 3 now. So there must have been another time. Maybe I gave you guys one.
I've lost 2.
You've lost 2, yeah. So.
And also, I never take it off now. If you notice, watch me on TV or films, I'm always wearing that bracelet. I sometimes stuff it up my shirt so nobody sees it.
Yeah.
But mostly, they say to me, "Oh, is your I said, my character's wearing this. My character likes to wear this bracelet." I just say that. And Eli Gold wore it for 7 seasons on The Good Wife. I just think, I'm not taking this off. Yeah.
Hello there. This is my friend Joe.
Hi.
Now, Joe plays rugby for England.
Yeah, what's your point? Come on.
Well, Joe presents a podcast, and it's my firm belief that you should listen to it.
Very interesting.
And here's why. Because it's not actually a rugby podcast, because, well, let's face it, there's billions of them already.
No. It's about you, the listener, and the jobs you do. If you're a teacher, an astronaut, a tree surgeon, or a chef, then we've got loads of questions for you.
The Joe Marler Show. Because everyone is interesting if you ask the right questions.
That's a great line. That is a very good line from you, Tom.
Thank you, Joe. You want to find it? Search for The Joe Marler Show in your podcast app.
Because everyone is interesting if you ask the right questions.
Gosh, we should do. Wait. Let me think, because there's some sort of. There's probably like a really interesting, cool internet thingy you could do with that. You know, isn't that what people like?
Like all the different times I've worn it.
Yes.
It's like there's a thing on Instagram I saw called Alan Cumming's neck, and it's just pictures of my neck.
Oh my god!
Isn't that weird?
Oh my god! Are you serious?
Seriously,
I'm going to follow it.
Look at it. Alan Cumming's neck. They've been a bit quiet of late, I've noticed. Not been any for a while, but there's quite a lot. Surprisingly, there's quite a lot of pictures where I am, presenting my neck to the world. My God,
I do not want to know what kind of Instagrams there are of my body parts. Oh my gosh. Wow.
Anyway, I wanted to say, Monica, go back to that year, that hilarious weekend of the award and the baguette.
Yes.
Because it was so recent that you had come back into society, and I know that the reason you did was Tyler Clementi, wasn't it? Well, I just explained to people who that is. He was a student at Rutgers, was it?
Yes,
Rutgers University, yes, Rutgers University, and he was his roommate sort of secretly filmed him having sex with other boy. And he was so ashamed by it, and he was so upset, and it kind of people piled on and did all this sort of internet shaming on him for this, and he killed himself. He threw himself off the George Washington Bridge, and I just thought it was so awful, and it really struck a chord. And his mum and dad have made this the Tyler Clementi Foundation now, which is for sort of anti-bullying and LGBT stuff, and his brother that's right.
too. Yeah, they're really. It's really worth. It's worth anyone who's listening to this. It's really worth checking out their.
It's a great organization, yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
You felt there was, because your mum felt so many resonances with you and him when it happened.
Well, I think what it was not so much about comparing, Tyler to me, but I think what it was this moment for me where my mom was so upset. And, my mom, Alan.
I love your mom.
She loves you too. She's, president of your fan club. Yeah, I do. Although there are some other well-known people I know, and she also likes them too, and says she's their president. But I think you're the first one. So,
good.
But on a serious note, my mom, it was kind of engaging with my mom and watching my mom and hearing my mom on the phone, how upset she was about the story and how awful she felt for Tyler and his family. And she just, she was distraught, and his poor family. And it was through the exchanges with her and sort of being able to watch her see another family that, even though obviously my scenario was so different, I had made this mistake. I had been part of something where Tyler was completely innocent. And that I came to understand that this, and came to see really that what was happening on the internet was, this was now different. This was now not just more well-known people or well-known people being called out and caught out. This was happening to private people too. I mean, and I had been a private person, and that, of course, was where, so much of my empathy came from, of this, being made into public meat on the internet, being made fun of. And so I think that was... And
now it can happen there's peer pressure as well now. Everyone can do it who's all around you.
Yeah. So I was really... I think that it for me, it just kind of woke me up and really recontextualized, woke me up in seeing what had happened to me a little bit differently, and really seeing the landscape of the online world through a different prism than I had been looking at it. Yeah. And it just kind of seemed like, well, maybe I should dip my toe in the water and see if I can be helpful. Even if I end up just being a poster child of, this was one of the most humiliated women in the world and she survived it. So you can too, even if it was something as base level as that, you know, seeing how much pain and fear still lived in my mom from that time period. It just, you know, I mean, who wouldn't stop to think, well, maybe I can do something, maybe I can be useful. So, but even from then, you know, that was 2010, you know, it was from 2010, my Vanity Fair essay wasn't until 2014. And so there were a number of, I don't want to say wrong turns because they all led to the right place. So, but a number of detours that, and they ended up being, you know, I'm grateful really to everybody, even where there was friction in that period. I'm grateful because I ended up with incredible editors who knew how to push me, who knew how to help my writing sing, and Graydon, so you know, to have that essay in Vanity Fair and to have had Graydon at the time be.
Yes, Graydon Carter is the editor of Vanity Fair.
He was. Well, now it's Radhika Jones, but he was editor at the time, and for Graydon to give me the space to be the one to reclaim my narrative, it made a world of difference that I was presenting myself how it was coming from me. You know, there was no filter. Yeah. You know, it wasn't through the prism of someone walking in saying, well, I met Monica at a blah, 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 and she was sitting on a red sofa with the this and the that. You know, there's something
holding
different.
A baguette.
Even exactly. Now, Alan. So, so I'm very grateful.
But was it that man, that nice man?
David Friend. Yes.
David French.
Which you connected me to, see?
That's so fascinating because he came to me. David French writes for Vanity Fair and stuff.
And he was a producer on the MLK JFK documentary that was just
That's
out
right.
this past year.
An amazing documentary. Yeah,
incredible.
And he was writing a book about sexuality in the 90s and wanted to talk to me about cabaret and, you know, what that was like and everything. And so I spoke to him and he said, he mentioned you. And so I came to you and said, I wonder if you'd like to talk to this man. You know, I know it's a subject that's maybe not what you want to talk about, but he seems really cool. And, you know, and you did. And we're both in his book. And then that was that was your connection to Vanity Fair. Yeah. So even books about sexuality in the 90s.
Yeah. Well, So that was in that route that became that. I mean, I had a history with Vanity Fair from two different ways of, having sort of been photographed by Herb Ritz in 98 for the magazine.
Oh,
but then
beautiful pictures. I remember those.
Thank you. So there were those pictures, but then also a really wonderful guy named Mike Hogan, he keeps getting promoted. So I don't know I think he's head of all of digital at Vanity Fair, but he's been there. He and I that was another route. He and I met volunteering for New York Cares. In the early 2000s. And so
good.
It was great. There were these amazing kids up in a transition home at the Jenny Clark House. And so we would take them to the library and help kids get library cards and read with them and work on their reading. And so he and I got to be friendly there. So that I had it was always all roads lead to Vanity Fair in a way.
The Vanity Fair Hall of Fame in 1998. We were both in it. There's like Monica, Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg, Tom Wolfe, John Glenn, the astronaut, Sean Puffy Combs, me, a peregrine falcon, Prudence Bushnell, who was the American ambassador to Kenya, all these, Sarah Michelle Gellar and these sort of TV youth stars, Ty Warner, the creator of Beanie Babies, Steve Jobs, you may have heard of him, Cameron Diaz, Ben Stiller, and Jeff Bezos. And Sammy Sosa, who was
the baseball, right? Wasn't he
baseball? Baseball.
Yes! Oh my God! Look how cool I look.
Look at you. And we were like the 20 people who changed the world in 1998. Isn't that hilarious? Oh my gosh!
We should have a reunion dinner. That would be pretty interesting.
That'd be a riot.
I know.
and you know what I remember? Because I looked it up. All of us have just got one picture, and Per Britt shot me actually. He shot me like like a fawn, like a little like Pan. I had like hooves and ears and a little lyre, and I was lying. And I remember I came on the set and there was like a forest, and I was, these funny nails and out of my ears. Anyway, and I said, and there was a tree trunk. I said, should I sit against the tree trunk, Herb? And he went, no, Alan, lie down. That means we'll guarantee 2 pages.
Herb was amazing. He was, oh my gosh.
I loved him.
He had the biggest,
and he did,
biggest
but you
heart.
had 2 pictures.
Yeah.
You had 2 pictures. You were the only person who had 2 pictures out of the whole thing. Yes. But I loved him. He was such a sweetheart.
Oh, he was such a love.
Oh, actually, do you know what? I've got it all wrong. He shot me for another thing. For the thing that I did with you in the Vanity Fair Hall of Fame, it was Annie Leibovitz who shot me. I'm getting confused between Annie Leibovitz and Herb Ritz. Get me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Annie who shot me for that thing. And then a couple of years later for the Hollywood issue, it was Herb who shot me as Pan. But he said to me, I want to take a picture of you, Alan. And, I see all these pictures of like David LaChapelle and all these photographers and all this makeup and you are all androgynous. And I love those pictures, but I just want to take a picture of you. The you that's nobody's seen. The handsome Alan, just natural. That's the picture I want to take. I was like, oh my God, he called me handsome, of course. Like, normally I'd be like, what? No guy liner? No, I'm not in a negligee. So then, of course, it went from natural light, no makeup, to 4 hours in makeup and dressed as Pan. Miss Monica, yeah. I've taken up far too much of your time, and I want to say thank you so much for going down memory lane with me, and thank you for giving me this lovely award and for being the keeper of the bracelets of my marriage. Yes. And I love you so much, and I'm so proud of you, and thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, Alan. I love you too, and I don't usually do a lot of podcasts, but with you,
I know,
because I don't know, I get shy. But with you,
this is fun,
and I love you. It was fun. This was easy, so. I love you very much, and I feel very, very grateful to consider you among my tribe. So, lucky.
Likewise, my love. Take care, brush your hair.
Okay.
Alan Cumming Shelves is hosted by me, Alan Cumming, and produced by the lovely Jack Claremont. We are part of the Acast Creator Network and the Crowd Network too. We just love networks. Another Crowd Network podcast to check out is Unaccountable. It's a podcast fighting for police accountability in the United States. It's a podcast that tells the stories of innocent people who've been killed by the police, just like George Floyd, but also people like Mohammed Muhaimin, Shacey House, and Carrie Illich. And so many more you haven't heard about, but you really should have. The stories can be difficult to listen to, but this could be the most important podcast you'll ever hear. It's a podcast fighting for change, and we need to join that fight. Just search for Unaccountable in your podcast app now.